So if you're wanting to learn how to get rid of oily skin and skincare routines for oily skin, well, the good news is you have found the right video. We're going to learn everything that you need to know about oily skin and treating it. So welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, we talk about everything medical and healthcare here on the channel, and the good news is that all of the information that we give on the channel is all scientifically evidenced and backed up, so you know you can trust the information that we give you. Please also don't forget, if you do find anything helpful in this week's video, if you learned something new, if you found something helpful, please don't forget to click that like button, because it's going to help me and it's going to help the video grow. And last but not least, please remember that all of this video is time-stamped in the description below, so if at any point you want to find any specific piece of information, feel free to click on the description and click on that relevant chapter. Now, let's begin. Okay, so let's begin with the basics. What causes oily skin? We all basically have something called sebaceous glands, and they sit underneath our skin. These sebaceous glands, they produce sebum, aka oil. Okay, so they produce oil and it goes onto our skin. Now, the amount that we produce can be altered by many different things, such as our genetics, our age, our sex, environmental factors. So there's many different things that can cause the sebaceous glands to produce more oil. Now when it comes to sebum, so that oil production is actually vital, so we do need it, and our skin does need it to keep it nice and hydrated and moisturized, as well as fighting off infections. So it does have many different roles. However, if we're producing too much, sometimes it can get clogged underneath the skin, and then it can cause acne and spots, and sometimes it can just make you looking shiny and very oily. So too much of it sometimes doesn't really have that much benefits, but a normal amount of production is actually really important for us. And in addition to that, it's not actually a bad thing having oily skin, as it has been shown having oily skin, studies have shown that having oilier skin, people's skin ages a lot slower, so they have less wrinkles. So I guess there is one benefit of having oily skin. Now there is a bit of a myth about having oily and greasy foods and it potentially causing us to have more oily skin, and I'm going to talk about this further down in the video, basically, where I'm going to talk a bit about gut biome and what we eat and how it can potentially affect our skin. So make sure you do watch that bit, because there's some really interesting stuff coming out about gut biome, and when it comes to the skin, they're sort of hand in hand, but I'll explain that to you later in the video. So now let's begin with actual ingredients and skincare products that you can use, and then we'll move on to the lifestyle stuff. Okay, so let's begin with a skincare routine. First of all, when it comes to skincare routines, I'm going to go through many different ingredients that you need to look out for, but when it first comes to sort of cleaning our skin, we need to wash our face, and we need to be doing it twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. We don't need to be doing it more than that. If we do it more than that, we're just going to aggravate the skin and make things worse. So twice a day is more than enough. And when it comes to a cleanser, you need to be making sure that it's oil free, so it doesn't clog those pores, because if we clog it again, it's going to make the oil production worse. Now you don't need to buy every single ingredient that I'm going to speak about in this video, because sometimes this sort of stuff can get very complicated when we're looking at skincare routines, but just to make it very simple and basic, there's three things that we need. We need a cleanser. We then need a moisturizer to lock in that moisture and stop it from leaving. And also, if it's during the daytime, we need a sunscreen as well. So now let's go through each one. Now, one ingredient that I really like is called niacinamide. Niacinamide is inexpensive as well, and it's actually made from vitamin B. And it does two things really. One thing it does is it reduces the oil production. And we know the mechanism of action of that, because we spoke about how oil is made and how our skin gets oily. So it reduces the production of that. But the second thing that it does is it increases the ceramides on our skin. And these ceramides kind of lock in the hydration on our skin. So it's going to make our skin feel more moisturized, which in turn, that feedback cycle of when our skin feels dry, which then causes the production of oil, so that sebum production increases, is going to reduce. So we're going to get a bit of a negative feedback action, because we've got the moisture on our skin, and it's not going to cause that loop to cause the oil production to make it more oily. So it's really good. Okay, so next up we have salicylic acid, and these are usually found in cleansers, and it can be really good at unclogging those pores. So again, if we unclog the pores, it's going to help with the oil production. It's not going to mean that we're going to cause too much oil production. It's just going to be a normal amount. Salicylic acid can also help with pigmentation, so pigmentation of the skin, and give it a sort of better appearance really. So it can be really, really helpful if you do have pigmentation and acne scars and things like that. The only thing you need to remember with salicylic acid is it can make the skin a little sensitive, so if you do use it, you definitely need to be using sunscreen during the day. Even if you don't use salicylic acid, you should still be using sunscreen during the day. Sunscreen is actually one of the most important things that we all need to use. And I know even when it's cloudy, we think, oh, we don't need to use it, but you really need to be using it because those UVA and UVB rays still go through and it causes the aging of the skin. And I guess that's one of the most important things that we can do to reduce aging of the skin. So salicylic acid, really good in the cleansers. Now, another really great ingredient is something known as retinoids. Retinoids can reduce the production of oil and they can also increase the turnover of skin cells. So again, it's going to help with unclogging those pores really. Retinoids can also be really helpful if you get a lot of ingrown hair. So again, it can be really helpful for all three of these sort of things. The only thing about retinoids is they can be quite harsh on the skin, so they're better used at night. You only need to really use a tiny amount. And lastly, if you are breastfeeding or pregnant or think about getting pregnant, it might not be suitable for you, so always speak to your healthcare professional before using a retinoid. Now, another ingredient that I really like is also something called hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid doesn't reduce the actual oil production, but it also keeps that moisture on the skin. So again, that feedback loop of our skin telling the sebaceous glands to produce more oil is going to be reduced. So we're not going to naturally produce loads of oil, so it's going to help with oily and greasy skin. So again, this is a great ingredient and it's relatively inexpensive as well. Now, with all these ingredients that I've spoken about so far, they're my favorite ingredients when it comes to oily skin, okay? You can find these ingredients in various different creams, lotions, you can find certain ones of them in cleansers like salicylic acid, for example. So have a search around, but at least you now know what ingredients to look out for, which ones have the best evidence that you want in them. And the creams, some of them are really expensive, some of them are really inexpensive as well, but at least now that you know what to look out for, what ingredients to look out for, I think you're going to find it a lot more helpful when it comes to purchasing them. And I know there's lots of videos out there that promote remedies that you can do from certain things that are in your kitchen, mix them up with creams and Vaselines and stuff like that. But it's a lot of anecdotal evidence. There's no real evidence or studies or large studies conducted on trials and on patients to see if these sort of things help. That's why everything that I spoke about in this video is all scientifically backed and evidence-based. So these ingredients that I spoke about all have evidence supporting them. That's why I'm telling you about them, to make your life easier so you're not having to go and read through journals and spend hours to just find the best ingredients. Now, with all these ingredients, it's also really important to remember to patch test to make sure that you don't have an allergic reaction to them, because the last thing you want to do is to apply all over your face and then next thing you know, you wake up with a massive allergic reaction to them. So the best way to do that, just to patch test, is to place a little bit behind your ear and then check it the next day just to make sure there's no allergies or sort of, you know, inflammation or anything in that area. If there is, you potentially got an allergy to it, so I would avoid it. So always patch test before you use any new products. It's also important to bear in mind that it can become problematic if you're using too much of one product. Let's say, for example, you're using, you know, a cleanser or something that's got salicylic acid and you're using a cream as well that's got salicylic acid in it as well. It's going to make the skin very sensitive. So with all these kind of ingredients, I wouldn't overuse them. I'd only really use one product that contains them. Don't use 5 products that contain salicylic acid, because all it's going to do is make things problematic for you. Okay, so now that we've looked at the ingredients, let's discuss lifestyle, okay? The main thing that I want to discuss when it comes about lifestyle is living a good, healthy lifestyle and having a healthy, balanced diet. And it's not just about saying, oh, let's have a healthy balanced diet and everything's gonna be fine, but I'm gonna tell you the reason behind it, why as well. So if you remember at the start, I discussed gut biome very slightly, and your gut biome is basically the bacteria that is in our gut, okay? We all have bacteria in our gut. Some of it is really, really helpful and our body needs it, so it works in symbiosis with us, and our body needs that bacteria to break down certain foods, for example. But we also have certain bad bacteria which release toxins in our body and cause inflammation. Now, there aren't any studies out there yet that sort of prove the theory that gut biome is going to help with our skin and acne and all this sort of stuff, but there's some really major studies being done at the moment, and there's some really good evidence, well, preliminary evidence that I've seen, especially about gut biome when it comes to alopecia, for example, and its effect, and also certain gut biome as well, and its effect on our skin health. But the results haven't been published yet, but it's definitely a good idea to know about. So when we talk about gut biome, we have good gut bacteria. I'm just going to call it good bacteria from now on. We have good gut bacteria, we have bad gut bacteria. And the important thing I want to mention in this video is, when it comes to skin health, we need to make sure that we're having good foods. And when we talk about healthy balanced foods, basically a healthy balanced diet is basically aiding a good gut bacteria. So it's making it a nice, pleasant environment in there. If we're having takeaways, dirty food every day, okay, if we're having ready meals every single day, if we're having foods that are really high in carbohydrates, so if we're having lots of complex carbohydrates every single day, all of these have been shown to make, our bad gut bacteria increase, because they're kind of playing a sort of balancing act, the good bacteria and the bad. And then they're sort of, you want them to be balanced or a bit more to the good. But if you're doing something and feeding yourself all these unhealthy foods and bad foods, and you're stressing a lot, and you're drinking a lot of alcohol, and all these things that we know that are bad for us when we say live a healthy balanced diet, basically what's going to happen is that bad bacteria is slowly going to increase, okay? And when that increases, it causes that internal inflammation, it causes the toxins to be released, which then can cause bad skin, more oil production, all these sort of things. So I'm not going to talk about gut biome for long, because I can talk about gut biome for a long time, but it's important for you to look into it, find out what foods are good for good gut bacteria and what foods are bad. In a nutshell, you need to be potentially having lots of fruit and vegetables, which we already know. Meats and poultry and stuff are fine, lots of fish are really good, but you need to be reducing, your dirty foods that you're having out there, like takeaways. You need to be trying to reduce your complex carbohydrates, like if you're having a lot of bread and all these sort of things, which then eventually become sugar, okay? So the main thing that you need to remember is trying to reduce the sugar from your diet, because having too much sugar can actually cause that bad bacteria to increase and the good bacteria to reduce. So it's all about reducing our sugar intake as well, and there is so many hidden sugars in our foods that we eat. So I'm going to stop waffling on now, but basically in a nutshell, make sure you're having a healthy balanced diet, and make sure that you're avoiding all these sugary foods as well. Make sure that you're trying to reduce the amount of complex carbohydrates that you have, and potentially reduce all the takeaways and stuff and the things like that you have in all the fast food stuff. If you can do that and see how your gut bacteria reacts, it does take time for it to start build up the good bacteria, but see how it reacts and see how your skin looks then, whether you've got acne, whether you've got oily skin, see how you get on there, and then leave a comment as well in the description below, because I would definitely love to read it, and I'm sure people watching this would love to know as well. So when it comes to getting medical attention, if you feel like you are getting affected with oily skin, if it's causing you a lot of acne, if it's causing you a lot of breakouts, if it's making you feel anxious and nervous and low in your mood, please do speak to a healthcare professional. This is the most important thing. That's what your healthcare professional is there. They are there to help. So please remember, if you're struggling at all with oily skin, if you feel like it's affecting your mood or your confidence and it's making your acne worse, any of these, speak to your healthcare professional. That is the most important thing, because your health is the most important thing. Okay, so it looks like we've come to the end of this week's video. I really do hope that you found this information helpful. You're now a bit of an oily skin pro. You now know all about the ingredients to look out for in the product, and you now know all about gut bacteria and gut biome. Sorry, I spoke about it way too long on that bit. But please do remember, if you have any of your own tips, leave a comment below in the description, not in the description, leave a comment below, because I would love to read it, and I'm sure everyone watching this video would love to read it too. Now, as I always say at the end of every single week's video, always remember that you're awesome, and I will see you next week. But you need to make sure that the cleanser is oil-free and it's not going to block those clogs. Block those clogs? Clog those pores. So next up we have salicylic acid. These are actually quite good in cleansers, and what they do is they help I can't say unclog and plug. Now, another ingredient that I really like as well is something known as hyaluronic acid. I always struggle to pronounce this one because I was quite higher. Good gut biome, and there's different foods that can help us make, bad gut good. Hey guys, thanks for watching this week's video. Make sure to click that like, follow or subscribe button now to stay up to date with new weekly videos.